Dear Judge Napolitano, please understand you guys are worse. You guys are involved with worse than the extortion of me and others, and with the military pretending motivations, pretending they could speak about vetting. For example, they're pretending motivations with people that they made connections with people and names next to the campuses of everyone I went to since I was a little kid. As people involved right now with wire crime action methods and mail crime action methods and planting fake evidence as fake letter and with their roles with digital crimes, with the news agencies, intelligence community, names all along, names at gas stations that Mike Pandolf and that Ray Cololo worked at, with the military involved. These are not people. These are increasingly people with Hartford Hospital. Have a whole bunch of people involved with predicate acts on my street, with retired Weathersfield police chiefs involved with these wire crimes, switching names. These same names with courts, judges, and their family members. A whole bunch of people with this guy named Justin Stryker with Trinity College, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, grew up lying about himself and me to others, attaching me to fake locations, fake ties to themselves. And the only one exception where I had nothing to do. They were sitting there. In other words, then they're putting fake things, pretend, I was drunk one time. After we graduated, I drank a little bit. In other words, then they made it look like it was going to be a party with girls. Every once in a while, they make exceptions with some of the people I do know. I don't know the Joshua Julian at all. He's on his Facebook page when they forced that. Went out them with names that were involved with shootings intercities and other natures of organized crime. And they timed the uses of it on my street with names that used to live in the area who were involved with identity theft. Also a child phone game. There are people with the name D. Simone with the intelligence community, intercampuses involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders with people at Hartford Hospital. One guy named Brett has the name Brett on his shirt. He came around a corner right when I was going to do it, and he said that name. There are people involved with the corner uses of corners of buildings at each campus I went to, and they're pretending this is on their military and stuff. Has something to do with Cololo's Rose. This name Cololo with a Sullivan. Also the name Sullivan. They don't give their full names. And with three different officers named McGee on different arrests, and they confessed as a threat further as worse that and how they only have one officer named McGee, not just to me, to my mother, because these are the ones attaching me to fake words with my family and others, with my and the, lying to their teachers and my teachers, and the exceptions of that also used. See, this breaching method with sophistication here, north and south, before our founders were born, it designed the suburbs with slavery entrenched. See, we have other talk because there are functions by that. There are functions by delusions, raw. They have the news involved planting evidences on and off campuses with child offenders, sexual, medical, and the interbranch, and the ones that are just with their kids there, and the difference between how one's a teacher and has a kid in the Weathersfield with the O'Neill. I don't know the O'Neills, but they're involved also with criminally foreign influenced uses of Saudis. They forced the roles with them, with whiting forensics, with mail crimes, wire evidences crimes, all kinds of natures of prosecutions. They're speaking about um, drugs they're leaving out the relativity of the jails and things. Meanwhile, they have some kind of synthetic drugs that knock kids out. I was like, I'm going to see what this does. This is before they legalized marijuana. I'm going to see what the kids are doing. Or in other words, it knocks you like that's it. In other words, you lose function in your body. With and they're going to they want synthesized things. These are the people at the healthcare since before our founding that had nothing to do with the great doctors and the great healthcare. That we, in other words, this is that method. There were only like 300. There were like about 350 streets in Hartford. I forgot the exact number. In one day for one person, they've been charging like $30,000 for 3 days. They force mental evaluations with a whole bunch of families that are personally and professionally involved, with people that live near me with wire crimes and with child offenders and roles with murderers and body dumping spots and uses of the rights to lie increasingly that they don't have. And they have uses of corners of streets involved with the witness protection program too. Remote uses of the sense and sensibility. Presidents have people who don't know how to react to questions because they don't know how to appreciate the Constitution unabridged because they never heard it voiced. Because they want to have nature's a debate about things that assuming what's not even debatable is debatable, Black pupils. They assume they want to have descriptions of their own emotions, of other people's emotions, leaving out how emotions are functional to know if descriptions are going to leave out the smallest finite detail or simultaneous. The value of what is simultaneous, Black pupils. We have read that all formal identities of law. We don't have to be lawyers. We know they are criminally foreign influence. Descriptions of the law and of its nature and of its value proper. Identities. Campus Marcius of the past returns in hypernative. Breathe. As there are proofs that they switched. It was legion, exceptions, and tribes, and humanity united against the other species. And in the nature of limitations, where there is simultaneously no limitation increasingly by that one aspect. Everyone has conjunctions too, because you are it. Hyper-additionally, it's making more of itself. That's why it's important that we address where and how now through systems individually grouped and together, tactically ulterior from its own. It's increasingly valuable conjunction to where and to how there is that difference. Individual species with the other species bodies too. The hyper invisible but still discernible comes with the invisible but still discernible parts of English grammar and of each language too. Individually grouped and together with the sounds with a better than living identity of relationship to themselves. Yeah. So in other words, the nature of debate is a complete possession / hyper-possession of a breaching method that I have been observing since I was a kid, as we have been in mass throughout the species body everywhere we stand. So in other words, other is spoken for us. And what inclusions with that needs to pretend things about the value of voting where it is not value. Value with the Constitution unabridged needs to look for excuses like and value them ahead of time. Like for pretending, oh, Israel's always right. That's not to say right or wrong. What we have to say is the suburbs from here to Russia to Ukraine. They were designed before our founders were born with slavery entrenched, with narratives and or with natures exploited, communicating other than our founders communicated for us to communicate, to understand about that. They communicated for us to understand how Native Americans individually grouped and together are 1/3 of the founders of this country. See, president / chief. But see, this was deciphered by the breaching method that was hyper sophistication here first. It knew that someone would have to make a unity / IES, any kind of a unity. Too, in countries grouped, it already had complete possession of them since semi-ancient times, since before modern religions, thank God, who did damage control to where we are individually grouped in together, increasingly having being and having been. Value, self-value too, because it's where it's you and everyone remotely is where you're not even discerning, but it's self-value. It's where you're using premises treatments. It's where you're using names treatments. This force tricked and hurt and persuaded names A through Z before modern religion's messengers were even born, to use the names of the sciences, to use the names of the human species volume, body of individual bodies. Tactical terrier, from the identity, from the phenomena of the only increasing value of the how distinctly the but and not just while non-distinctly the hyper invisible but still discernible is functional being self. There are proofs that is more probable anyway. For example, and this can be used functionally. That and how yin yang has no visible or invisible but still discernible conjunction between it, because it is how. It is about how. If there are proofs that alpha and omega and yin yang are revealed to be taught together by the ancients. But then again, it forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded names A through Z of the human volume everywhere it is to have to defend themselves syntactically. And then increasingly, without realizing, as natures of defenses of themselves using the names of the sciences too. Also, just like us, like all things, individually grouped together distinctly, non-distinctly, and not just simultaneously, but hyper simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. Nature shows us that it is one identity of volume that is beyond what we could understand and know is true always, with every subject individually grouped in together, black pupils. We have had these means to discern how all four black pupils, whites of eyes. So we have this volume science. These sides, like say you start speaking for black, it's about the pupils. It's about the species, volume, individual group. The nature of debate left the breaching method out of this because it assigned guilt. It assigned names, uses, and defenses to screen how offensively at all locations /s was these collusions where no one wanted it, and that had been sustained since semi-ancient times. Then through other forms and natures of counters, not fathoming the proverbial devil, the shaytun. We're not supposed to call one name. We're supposed to decipher using science. We are supposed to counter a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise and offer the chance to step down away from the method /s it used / is using. And / is the active part. Here's shock and awe again. I didn't come up with that phrase. The intelligence community by Fox News or CNN reported that, or for MSNBC. Shock and awe was used as an offensive tactic. But this is where and how people that use surveillance equipment, certain type of victim / hyper victim, in defenses of that. For example, in defenses of their expertise, people A through Z, they left out and leave out exceptions without realizing, for example, self-valuing things like wars to pretend seriousness or motivations. Because at locations A through Z, not just to me, a hyper foreign body has been present with the motivations of others. And there is means to discern this. There is means to discern how it knew that to discern itself it knew nature would keep demonstrating to us. Like, for example, by paying attention to the breaching method, the scientific value of the breaching method. That is one of the things that was sickly distinctly against Native Americans A through Z, against colonists A through Z, against the other of the three portions of our founders, individually grouped in together. Those with James Madison's plan, him as our first founder. And with the exceptions of George Washington being our first president and a founder at the same time with him. But they were using the plan with James Madison, which is the Constitution unabridged, which is the amendment where we have rights that are too numerous to enumerate. People associated with them, people with fire departments and hospitals who sought me out to make confessions, not knowing me and pretending other as intelligence, because then they say, oh, we know them. They're using stuff in databases. They've been stuffing databases. This is relative, even if they made it up, witch trials. For example, there's a means to everyone, in other words, there's a means to discern what it was about. In other words, in short, it was about slavery method, a torture, extortion, slavery method, even if it was made up. The same one, I'm not saying it was made up about the president being assassinated, President Kennedy / chief. But even if it was made up about the book depository that is used to measure and maintain, that is right where and how the breaching method that tortured, extorted, and enslaved also countries grouped, and also that way consciously, because it knew what and how nature would be demonstrating. A semi-ancient human factory nature breaching method took possession of human factory nature qualities, aspects in nature's black pupil, had one honest law, voice in nature, used convictions properly with voice. We would have discerned this is about a predicate acts with facts method. What was entrenched here before our founders were born, and what they did not have free speech to counter because of how it was entrenched, and through ourselves, which goes to the this while it was being sustained, no one was fathoming or capable of discerning where and how it was one function, one method. One of the things it is, in all exceptions, in exception nature, it used to measure and maintain roles with itself, for example, as behavior descriptions, with behavior descriptions. So to keep uses of how emotions serve to be functional, not just if the smallest finite details left out. It's and or the relativity of what came first. For example, two. where and how this has remote possession and had remote possession, also the difference of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and of those other countries individually grouped into together themselves already being and having been tortured, extorted, and in fact, human nature enslaved three ways. See Native Dreams. I believe is the Native Americans. I believe it's the Navajo. I don't know. Would say that we are supposed to read each other's dreams. That's what our founders say too, president slash chief is, and how they didn't have free speech because there was a breaching method that made everyone pretend to be able to speak about credibility and black pupils, or they'd be or they'd be sensed, or to pretend to be against it exactly the way it needed because it needs positive treatments and negative treatments and different treatments, tactical ulterior to keep from itself from being discerned. The hyper invisible is still discernible, the same way the invisible but still discernible is. And every an identity as an identity of relativity to positive and negative simultaneously to the value slash value progression that each word is. Anything Q you can make up, let alone something that's a direct projection slash hyper projection of the better than living body of value of the identity of the hyper simultaneous to the extent we can discern it. But this requires us to be able to discern it the way it shows us to. And this means that so black pupils, we know that the nature of debate, there are people that will formally pretend and the difference between them doing it or the overt criminal enterprises or the private ones. That difference too. Sometimes is worse and something like that. That's manifest that way. Right where the breaching method showed and slash shows. That means to hide it. So, for example, I don't. Ray Reynolds. There's a Ray Reynolds from Wethersfield. He will tell you there were probate judges who had family members who had intimate ties to each other, and they had roles with the same streets, also with military, and with people that were involved with other natures of organized crime, with each nature of campus, but not for that. They had roles with federal evidences crimes and pretending passions and emotions, where and how they do that for where the identities of kids and the identities of adults and young adults are used to paint illusions where they pretend to have credibility by formal counters to the only counters to things as people state collusions, certain type of victim slash hyper victim. Two, if you mention this, it comes simultaneously with the hyper foreign, but it also comes to discern that it comes also with a whole bunch of different countries. Egypt was mentioned in the things. Nothing personal against Egypt. It's nothing personal against Israel. It's nothing personal against Jordan. It's nothing personal against Syria. They're involved with the names involved with the on my street. I don't with the name Cleese too. They'll tell you I barely know them. I don't know what to tell you. But they have that with people with different streets who I never had communication in my life. They're putting and they're locking the intelligence community, locked roles with investigations. Investigators used remotely criminally foreign influence. So there's a Leahy family I never had a conversation with that pretended me in a conversation with them through the mail and transcripts, old quotations they put me in. They work with also people with the military at Hartford Hospital. And they work with like translators and that people that train them who also have roles with the probate judges, with houses on on two-route highway through time, tied to a South Sevilla and people that lived near him, who was in my fourth grade class, also with a Julie Morin. And I kind of had a crush on her. I don't know. In other words, I would not. No, then I gave her. I gave her a Valentine's card. This is relative because there's a Morin was reportedly, or I don't know who is the mayor now, but it's been through mayors from before I was born. And then there was a Mayor Gold who's increasingly involved with child offenders and with people involved with medical abuses of them, as roles with the only counters who have roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and conscious uses of where and how they pretend to be about integrity, where and how they have that a part of their narratives. We're at countries A through Z, where we are shared at campuses. They are being and having been to defend their short words, or let alone the long words, relative to convictions, relative to the existence of ulterior motivations, natures, needs, interests, regarding their uses of individuals' names, groups' names, black pupils, and the species volume, black pupils. Here, we know these means are hyper clear. So, but we can't get them to follow mandated law because all sides in criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, and the names at the interbranch locations involved, and the names at the intelligence families involved. There's a whole bunch of intelligence people tied to Sabi Bajaria, who influenced him to lie about himself and others, with people who also lied. I had a girlfriend for about a year when I was a freshman. And then people associated with other countries and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with his co-defendants and with their family members. They've been roles on Church Street in Old Weathersfield. They spy on people with people's. I didn't even have classes with them. They try to make a fake exception with Heather Hansen. There's a John DeMoro who was a recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed his brothers, and then they have roles with overt criminal enterprises, plural. When I was in middle school, I barely knew they sought me out when I was in middle school to make confessions about this, like a couple times, and then there was. In other words, they were planting evidences with judges and prosecutors, people associated with all sides next to Hartford Hospital, and next to this is a business, Tomorrow's Market, and there's an ILO's Kitchen, who's involved with a Mayor Gold, people involved with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, and with names next to the state judicial branch offices and the state corrections offices, increasingly involved with military, criminally foreign influence uses of the right to lie, uses of people's names and their motivations, where they're gonna say, "Oh, we'll leave it to the courts." But these are people involved planting evidences with courts still, as roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases, including in the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center attack, right next to the World Trade Center towers, right before the attack. So a Ray Reynolds and a Mike Pandolf have roles with the Harris family and people with Quinnipiac University involved with various natures of organized crime. For example, and people at UConn with the military involved with identity thefts and frauds with child offenders, identity theft, and sexual and medical. These are also judges associated with probate courts planting evidences with their patients and criminals and against themselves. At the same time, they hurt them too to keep them, as the breaching method shows them. Only to an extent, they know about it more than us. But we have black pupils. To an extent, we know. more than them. The formal identities law. There's a Trantolo and Trantolo who painted himself in corner with judges and prosecutors recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, using him remotely. Also with the intelligence community on off WFSB, WTNH, Fox Connecticut News, Bravo Network. Bravo Network has roles with police chief Cintron and his family members, also all along Route 3 with the Ray Claw, Mike Pandolf, involved with my a school I went to in kindergarten for 1 year. House is next to it. There's a name Schedule, also who is a part of the intimate relationships with the sister slash S. And I don't know the brother. And these are people in the Facebook, some ways themselves, in some ways the FBI, some ways the Wethersfield police with them. This police chief Cintron, reportedly 1 year before that lived in the same house, associated with a woman who had a crazy dog too. They used to just not even have a leash before leash laws, but it would come through the flipper. In other words, but also there's people with the name Lewis, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved, and I don't know a guy named Tiffy associated with one of the Joe DeMoros, but they said they're cousins. One of their cousins said they're cousins of the people that recorded, confessed, demonstrated the name Scalora involved with that street and off my house, where they have roles with predicate acts. And it's nothing personal. They have roles with the FBI too. Where it's personal or not, they lie about that too. They have roles with behavior racketeering. Again, when these are people involved with the elderly homes too. There's a Terry Cleese who's one of the ones that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Roles with his brother also, with planting evidences, and roles with criminally foreign influence uses of investigators, and of the right to lie. So there's other forms of leaking because these are victims since they were kids, because of the roles of the FBI director in his in defendant capacities. They could that we need to use that to be able to discern because it came from before that. So this is the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence to Corrupt Organization Act. There is also recorded proofs that conclusively all their draftings of law, but the Patriot Act was used in collusion. For example, know how they pretend we want torture. Know how they get some experts that leave out exceptions, black people. They leave out really how and why there are types of agencies and things like all the types of jobs. Oh, but we're an online specialist. They have the FBI recorded involved with other agencies and military. And you're leaking roles with the ones at Hartford Hospital that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, like Mark Violet and his mother, involved with UConn, with Hartford Hospital, and with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Also with a Mike, I never had a conversation with a Mike Violet, and he's involved with people with the military. They said his name is Joey. I don't know them. In other words, and that's the kid that's a guy that Asabi Bajaria stole. He said, hold on here. He went and stole a speaker box and put it in my trunk. So there are means to get his name. He's involved with males and females at the intelligence community with spots next to the state capitol. And they're involved with people with, Hartford Hospital who attached me to fake conversations. There was also ones that did this completely. And there's ones that had the ones that did it completely one way that we weren't even next to each other. And the other one who did it, there's someone named, there's a detective Dylan. I don't know what he is now. In other words, a Kevin Dillon. He's also and is also involved with Anna Dillon. She switches his name Annie Dillon. Name switching and sequence shifting into courts, interstates was involved. These are people involved with all ways with the intelligence community. There's a Mike Roberts. There are intelligence community associated with a Mike Roberts and a Daryl Chandler. I don't know his sister's name. He sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm he's involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. They had to pretend to know me. There was one exception too. In other words, a Ray Clow asked me if I could hold a cup because I told them I didn't want an X on my hand or to pay for a cup because I wasn't drinking at the end of graduation, 1993. Something, and I never. That was the only other time I saw him from when I was a freshman. He came up and confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed he has roles with a Taekwondo plays and the South Korean community. Now I found out they're involved with all kinds of natures of medical corruption, also with the policing of the places, and they have all kinds of things, all kinds of roles with torture, extortion, and slavery overt against elderly homes and veterans. That is akin to that which is overtly / insidiously in our faces as it actually is manifest in New York City. See, this preaching method knew that people would value identities of law, formal and informal, and then overtly, as ourselves, forced to be worse than just groupthink. Groupthink, one of those phrases used by CNN, Fox News, I believe MSNBC. I wasn't watching at the time. I was watching mostly Fox News and CNN. When I heard that phrase used, but I was one of the bodies. I was one of the names that was in the Ninth Circuit Court, which is right next to the World Trade Center towers, right before the attack. And they had post-dated, it was proven after the attack. They had post-dated legal papers from inside that court. And there are people with the name Scalora who are involved increasingly with home break-ins and uses of them that were parallel with them in my area, which is also services people involved with the Wethersfield police. They have military corruption. They have the people that work with the prisons, Sandy Hook prisons, and the state corrections offices. They have what are they called? Victims advocates, torturing people to say nothing about people who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with overt criminal enterprises, plural. Their members individually grouped in together as roles with people I didn't even have classes with, who were putting fake things in databases, also with private school kids. So they have roles with the highways and things like that, what they call security defense. It's more so to keep uses of, words / values like geopolitics and or phrases like, forget that. In other words, let's look at mandated law. Follow WFSB attached me to fake conversations about the World Trade Center. It has something to do with people who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a people with the name Zano, and there are locations involved with them. Involved also with a Christopher Walters and a Jonathan Maiano, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with conversations on Covington Street in New Britain, which is next to Central Connecticut State University, with people who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with him, with spots next to the state capitol and on off Central Connecticut State University. His roles with a whole bunch of other people on my street, where he's involved with sequence shifts with them. He used to hang around with the kid. Like there were people in my grade who came into my grade in my grammar school when I was in fourth grade, and I never saw my neighbor Ray Cololo, who came in when I was in fourth grade. Never saw a sister on a campus. They have Newington police families. They say are involved also other ways recorded per the Weathersfield police confessions about themselves and their threats with guns and bug spray. Also with people I don't know the names of, but they're involved on all sides of my house. As one of the ones who was a patient of one of the doctors, who also made confessions to me after I asked the third time I was forced for mental evaluation. Two times they made this stuff up to force that. There had been no problems. They brought them up on Facebook too. They've been lying and replacing what's on Facebook with the agencies, plural. And we're going to go deeper and deeper into that if they keep delaying. So they are leaking that way too. They have CNN, they have the CIA, for example, involved with the name Kazmierek. I don't know her. I don't know her family. They're involved with Eric Jensen with state police locations, interstates, with people with the name Ray Reynolds, also involved with drugs and medicines crimes, countering bodies who have been planting evidences on kids, attaching the fake locations, using that to maintain social identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles, needs, and natures. So they have, I don't know, and Eric Olson and a Mark Olson. The FBI and Weathersfield Police have people with the name Schumack, also involved on off Trinity College with mayors, or on off spots, 3 spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike with the intelligence community, identity thefts, fraud, slanders, lying about themselves and others and that's how they leak. Because then they're pretending to know people and there are timed uses of that. And years later too. They brought out all these confessions from strangers. My tooth falling out too. They tortured me, and I did not talk to them. No, in other words, in other words, they give me something to dry it out my mouth. Otherwise, they're going to stab me with a pen or whatever they call it. And they lied about what happened with that. I wasn't a problem. The kid was threatening me. He's the one involved with a Smith family, involved with Afghan leaders. So you guys are confessing things with the Weathersfield police. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded with the FBI and other police departments, the and MPO Floyd, to collusions with them with this guy. I had to yell. I had to force people to call the police without telling them why. They can't respond. I told them, I'm warning. I told them, it's not like I was trying to trick them. I told them, in other words, I knew they were going to have to put lies in the paper. A whole bunch of Hartford hospital people have further roles with this Kevin Dillon, who had been planting, who made confessions non-verbally to me as confirmations from the others involved. And as former director of the FBI did Robert Luskin in a 2006 district court case. His lawyer is also one of the locations near the state capital of Connecticut involved with this. So in other words, they leaked and are leaking way more. I don't know the what's his name? Nick Sweet. They had him on Facebook. The exception where I know him, they had that. They can't be honest about that. The exception where I know him on Weathersfield Avenue, right around, not like, real fast walking distance to where Weathersfield Police is now, where Weathersfield Police Department is now, where they moved it to. They're like, there's a Shumack house that was near there on Rockwell or whatever, and their house people associate with that name, where they take pictures of people and they make it look like you know them with the people that we overtly don't know. Like this Joshua Julian, I caught with the Facebook page of the principal child abuser, involved with KKK themed, Confederate flag themed, and black themed military police, and names on off Trinity College, on off the principal child abuser's campus in Weathersfield. And these are with names with Rocky Hill campuses too. Has something to do with these are people that have been yelling things out too because they have roles with the intelligence community, including mayors, their family members. Then they pretend it's personal. Oh well, he was saying it was about us. That's why we didn't respond. I told them the predicate acts to respond to. They attached me to fake transcripts with the phones too. They put fake emails. These are people that work for the phone companies in the intelligence community. They're people with the name Spada, involved with the confessions of the name Cololo and their other boyfriend, the people with the name Della Fera, that has something to do with their roles with the spots next to towns, the town lines, and their roles with probate judges and superior court judges and people involved with Connecticut's district to the same house/s with their extended family members also has names on all sides of the criminal cases, including in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center. Names on all sides have roles with World Trade Center predicate acts since to hide that, and with the motivations narratives, where and how is screened the hyper foreign, which they're increasingly preventing me or others not to talk about, even though it is so overtly present with the value of Native Americans individually grouped in together with to the species volume science with the portion of our founders coupled with that as the one as part of the answer. How that, in other words, there are answers that are replaced. Our answers, our founders wanted nothing to do with slavery. They wanted us to explain how the torture, extortion, slavery, and pretend other, or your sense, even if that body is a majority of people, even if that body is a majority of nations, is discernible now too. Ugh. We have suburbs designed for cars where we could transfer the earth and contact the ship if it has a problem during the process and help it with another one. But rather than move as a species body out of this trap/s, as there are proofs they did, what really revealed the republic for which we stand, it was appreciating exceptions and exception nature the way nature does, which is hyper additionally, which is as itself. The tip of your nail is yourself, but it is not as your complete self. And your complete self is not itself, but is as itself anyway. Many pray. We could ignore its system and its hyper conjunction to the difference of individual, grouped differences, difference/s, rather. Ages, areas, sexes, locations, areas, states, names of countries, names of groups, again, used as systems, tactical terror from how we are individually grouped and together. The nature of debate, for example, regarding forgiveness, had been appreciated with honesty, where debate is. It would have revealed revelations. It would have revealed the increasing value of understanding the breaching method singular that was behind how the laws were so crazy as they were manifest, as it was there, where and how it was there, constantly as why. In other words, if we want to make a conviction by why. See, but we have to be led by why and how we have this question. Again, it's through its system law. You think that nature employed us to teach about positive and negative through systems that appreciate hunger and thirst, through such abridgments, still pretending not to realize. New York. The suburbs were designed tactically for torture, tactically denatured for torture, extortion, slavery method that had already been the cause of all kinds of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that it effectively employed, blamed on other things other than themselves. So understand that when you hear people using I lost my train of thought. So in other words, people though, let's deal with the predicate acts and get the Wethersfield police on paper with the courts, because these are New Britain Superior Court's families and Hartford Court's families that are also personally with the foreign and domestic military leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context, it's nothing personal against Kuwait. It's definitely nothing personal against Iraq, because we owe them. Not per the agreements, all that. That's all sides are right. All other sides are fake. There's a method to keeping integrity never having spoken. All natures of precedents and statutes, syntax are functional by that breaching method. You guys, we did not want torture with the World Trade Center attack. There's also a Casper. There are Casper families. I don't know his daughter's name, his sister's name, but Czech Casper. He has roles with the intelligence community and lying about himself and others. He made a fake and behavior racketeering where they lie about motivations. Has something to do with his roles all along the Berlin Turnpike and with the names at next to the state capitol and planting evidence with them. And with the mayors involved. There's a Debbie Gold who's also involved with a Bryan family. Off the campuses are putting people in fake words, fake ties, fake natures of ties to other people. And where it is relative, where and how they need people to keep blame and guilt. Because even at formal locations, that's how, in other words, they've been using interbranch locations to hide their roles with predicate acts with facts too. Way worse. As collusion. In other words, as collusions at those locations. Their motivations go back to where and how it put these group things together. A whole bunch of people tied to the name Perone involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with investigators used remotely. All sides of criminal and civil cases. Roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime. Where and how it is functional. That guilt assignments, roles, needs, and or natures are used to measure and maintain effectively all formal law voicings, locations, therefore names, roles, with also the difference of that. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, hundreds of countries shared here or there. So pretending that it was about vetting since people were little is one of the things they pretend where and how. We're going to use evidences where and how there are ways to discern how modern names, legal voices, and branches of government's names, act, how they are manifest actually at countries A through Z, and further how as, voicings as, earth, not but anyway, and by that which keeps this so, or forces, or our value is forced from here, least of Hadith. So also they on a mass scale. So there are only like 300 streets in Hartford. They're charging people like $30,000 for 3 days of mental evaluation, and they're putting fake conversations and ties to people that with doctors they never had conversations with. These are foreign and domestic police forms also doing this, and they have roles for psychiatry. They give you a choice. They have crime methods where they have rules that they don't follow them anyway. Russians and Americans have collusions here. They have it with the fire departments too. Ugh. Wire crime methods, mail crime methods. They even pretended me to fake conversations with police as a kid, now as an adult. So you can't trust them, so I have to ask on here online. They lie about, see, there are the excuses. They use the right to lie, but they don't. They don't have the right to lie about my motivations here. They don't have the right to be delusions wrought and not have that checked too, black pupils. Follow mandated law for the World Trade Center too. So we and for the Sandy Hook people, I would never, no one would want that. So I'm not even going to debate it. But you have to get them on paper. In other words, they have you saying, I know it's hard to hear. I know it's hard to hear. The principal child offender is recorded with more then and now with the courts, with the campuses still sick with kids, and with the Facebook pages. And with the news planting evidences, rolls. So get them on paper, please, and get off the state capitol if you can't follow mandated law for kids. I'll show you because these are people with guns, crimes with the kids. And the differences and uses consciously of the differences of the roles with nature's organized crime and methods of it. I'm not talking about the ones they know about. I'm talking about these ones with predicate acts, with facts, with time collusion with foreign bodies, because with a hyper foreign body, it uses sense and sensibilities. Use Jane Austen's phrase. It uses your delusions. Uses dictionary's phrase word. This is not this. I'm not a doctor. I'll delineate the delusions from the criminal foreign influences of the psychiatrist. You even entertain getting that path of thought. You're incapable of discerning what needs to be discerned to be able to speak for the law. Let alone what's delusional or not, and where and how we have misinformation as a real negative value nature progression. It is inseparable from where and how. Originally, all negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures recorded caused by the breaching method, like slavery, they're still being blamed on other things, others, and or on selves. So why and how the Republicans or the Democrats can't speak for their leaders and need to pretend other? They need to keep these things. In other words, read. They want to read the Bible and the Quran out of sequence and leave out how both those books said only right here. No, right at the beginning. You guys want to defend it out of sequence because you guys are sequence shift cover ups. You have rules with the names post dating legal papers and uses of them and of their sources on all sides of that influence the roles of predicate acts after the World Trade Center too. Hartford courts have roles with their family members with that too. Through other instances with an officer named Hunter too, involved with also with like a sexual come on to me, but they're disgusting people. Then they pretend it's personal or they're homophobic. No, it doesn't look like aggressive too. I wouldn't. First of all, I'm not gay, and second of all, that's sexual harassment, which even Fox News has roles with. Rocks as counters to it, as collusions with it. I just saw a video of Tucker Carlson. He used the word eunuch. These are people that are involved with his campus, that are involved with identity theft, fraud, slander since they were kids, pretending sensibility, pretending to be credibility by acting when told and how, and then making opposite too because they want to keep motivations of others spoken about where they don't have the right to speak about others. You guys are supposed to follow mandated law. There's a guy who says his name is Darth Vader. We're involved with the police, involved with the child offenders, and a Joshua Stryker, who's one of the ones involved with military. They say, in other words, we'll get into this. There's a whole bunch of people tied to Paul Kelly and his neighbors are involved with news media, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the kids of interbranch family members spreading lies with overt criminal enterprises and private ones actually, and with the difference of that of all these different countries and their extended family members. They brought this up time too, intercities, because that's what happened. I caught them before the World Trade Center attack in West Hartford locations. Hartford courts and New Britain Superior Court's people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with foreign and domestic military involved with names from what I didn't even tell them this part of it. But what they say, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with names from Weathersfield, as the names who were also involved with the World Trade Center and the names next to it, who are also involved with the predicate acts of my street, with the Weathersfield police switching names, forging names, refusing to identify themselves, pretending other with a fake trick with a card. In other words, was the name Sclora involved? Who knows the name Sclora? Get them on police. There's Mendez police too, further involved through time with child offenders associated with New Britain Superior Court. These are the names of the Hartford courts and their family members involved. And Judge Napolitano, I asked him, what they do? They use the crime method, criminally foreign influence, to pretending not to understand the short words of people, so they could get over on and with fake things that were stacked in databases at every campus everyone went to. Especially if you tried to use what smart or wisdom actually is about, which we're going to do that. You're going to use how you didn't want that breaching method, because that breaching method is singular. It is discernible. Conjunction /s to all these other voicings that we know from the youngest age. Can't defend that and afford discerned, what they're actually, you know, is honest voicing free speech for themselves. We can discern how this breaching method has self-value. Suburbs that were designed before our founders were even born for torture, extortion, and slavery. We can discern how it is maintained. They discern the breaching method discerned before we did how we were supposed to decipher George Washington's extortion, the torture against himself, and the extortion method /s against himself, and the slavery, the facsimile nature of slavery, therefore physical slavery method against himself and against James Madison, sickly distinctly too, to keep out sickly non-distinctly from being discerned by anyone, and or anyone showing the ways that it is discernible, sensed, even if that body is a group of people. Our majority of people, black pupils. We have these black pupils to discern as black actors in a movie /s with the colors reversed. This will be used to show And this is how you will discern. Had black pupils and you hear people speak black or white, you know they're fake. You miss this because they had other things, other themselves. Because a breaching method employed, but it employed through ourselves. Everything, all natural differences to communicate and mean other than they do. For a function slash S by that. And so the quote expert on American history self values everyone having had American history taught to them sickly distinctly wrong to keep how sickly non distinctly from being voiced or to keep that pretended debatable black pupils. There's a difference between needing to have a court of justice and needing to have one because a breaching method needs it. /S. Please follow mandated law. Please, WFSB, please fix the fake conversations with me that are also leaking demonstrations, confirmations of roles with the names involved with the police, intercities, Rock Hill police families, and families retired intelligence associated with the name O'Brien are also with a whole bunch of countries. It's going to, in other words, I'm warning you. I'm just going to focus on that. And it's not me making up things that don't make sense. You guys are names that you brought up. All exceptions you lied about too, as collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Even the witness protection program is involved with you guys. And I don't know what you told Eric Klotz and Kathy Tansey. And with this, but they have them involved with sequence shifts with the intelligence community too. Foreign and domestic military, more World Trade Center attack predicate acts, with the names involved with my sixth grade class, who are involved with predicate acts with my fifth grade class, who are involved with predicate acts with my fourth grade class, distinctly. And that's when the Ray Claw involved with the Wethersfield police ongoing wire crimes began. And these are the people further involved with credible threats of violence. One guy said he's going to hurt my eyes with one of the ones with the neighbor. And he's with the military, with the Wethersfield police, with the name Smith, and people that answer the phones with the name Mendez. Involved with wire crime action methods through time, identity theft, fraud, slander, lying about themselves and others where they don't have the right to lie. They have roles. They demonstrate non-verbally confirmed roles with others, and with a Club Blue, which is now a Russian lady, and they have roles with violence there, and various and murders with the spots and stuff like that, and people involved with the extortion and body dumping spots. Reports that someone fell off a roof there at that time, too. And it was around reports of people fell off the roof of Hartford Hospital. These are a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital with black themed and KKK themed military also on off and Latino, and where they speak identities. These are people, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with a cafe in Mexico, with people with the intelligence community on off Central Connecticut State University, with intelligence at Sandy Hook, with a prison there too. People that work there. Intelligence has been criminally foreign influence since founding. Our founders left us to demonstrate. The prisons were sickly distinctly to keep out sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. Left with the entrenched method that was too vast. It was entrenched too vast, too deep. So they had to force them to be sides. They had to help each other to become a country, and they had to counter extort them at 13 locations and show them the value of that breaching method, which only allowed them the only choice of survival they had once they had syntactically done other than they were supposed to do by told by the breaching method. They had no choice but to try to become a country, even though there was no means to that, except for the phenomenon of our three identities of founders. One, again, as Native Americans individually grouped in together. Two, as our founders individually grouped in together and individually coupled in together. And so individually coupled them together too with the Native Americans. And then the other third are the founders who had to be counter extorted to roles. I mean, everyone had to be counter extorted. Native Americans were fighting against each other for the same reason. There was a human fact-shooting nature, slavery method, hyper-slavery method. It uses effect functionally, how people would debate what's not debatable, like where and how there is this human fact-shooting nature slavery method, how and when the suburbs were designed, and how and why that is manifest from here to Russia to Saudi Arabia is evidence. How and why. For example, Barack Obama, President slash Chief Barack Obama, slash Chief, no. Again, that's why. But he noted that Russians, China, I mean, people from China lost their lives building railroads in America. Names A through Z, before modern religion's messengers were even born. They'd already been taken away from the nature system. Everyone's in the same exact hyper native trap, semi ancient trap, which is a hyper native trap. See, they can't afford discerned with nature and how nature communicates with difference. Black people. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. Some of us has the same with the exceptions. Then you start really getting into that, which shows other than we could have afford discern by types of experts when they really get into things, for example. It's a nature of really getting into things that leaves out how their jobs were directed to rely on other identities of experts themselves abridged. For that function, Black people, which they are for. We have what is constant and what is variable. We have exceptions, exception nature. This is being used by nature itself in ways as the ways that math is using them. Uses exceptions, exception nature, uses difference, but also hyper additionally. It is as itself the value of what came first. And as what leads priority with questions. For example, already this breaching method showed judges and prosecutors that they should pretend that they think that they should try to control questions or that they could discern why and how actually people want to control the questions. Because there are increasingly collusions with names at all locations / s. Certain type of victim as girls with relative to the databases and then uses them at other locations that stayed and exploits them as women, simply distinctly from men. I noticed it not just against me. The intelligence community, while being used remotely, There's a method that never stopped using them remotely. They use a method when people are going to walk into the cafeterias. They hear things about other people, right, at walking there at that moment, and vice versa. This is true conversely. It's an identity theft, fraud, slander method that shows them they need to hide things preemptively and from the past and actively. The identities of the law, for example, they make short words of convictions. The identities of journalists. They have they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have like a hear no evil, see no evil method, where the people who answer the phones with them, they're a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, and then they pretend that's what it is. It was just one of those instances where and how they have roles with the intelligence community fabricating audio and video transcripts, and with wire crime acts and methods, predicate acts with fax methods. And that's inherent within their syntax. It's inherent where they have conversations with other people regarding names using, regarding guilt. How are they going to speak for guilt? About police, lawyers, like one named Bayer. Also with locations, professionally and criminally overtly. And with news locations and media, public television, roles preventing mandated law with child offenders, lying about their motivations for it. Has something to do with their roles with NASA, too. The ones with the fire departments involved with wire crimes, and then with behavior racketeering, where they lie about their motivations. With all sides of my house, they've been planting evidences. With people at Harvard Hospital, too. With the military, criminally foreign influenced. A whole bunch of people tied to my street in the past who had predicate acts. And they brought it up. They just, in other words, they recorded themselves doing this when I was a kid. They know with people from private schools that were coming on the campus. I found out it's a whole bunch of people tied to a police chief Cintron's daughter, a Jessica Cintron. I never saw her around anywhere. In other words, these are people all along Route 175 who and the one I don't know, the ones I do know, they went out of their way to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm collusions with wire crimes and with people from my grammar school involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed to us since we are kids. Collusions with them, which they pretend are the real reasons why and how they can't afford the short words, let alone their protraction. With where and how young kids really have the potential to be smart and wise. You have to appreciate these 3 volumes of founders. You have to appreciate each one also as 3 volumes because everything has its identity relationship to itself. And that the discernment of that comes also with you have to appreciate what it is showing us, not just individual group difference slash S and species volume difference. Species slash S. My tooth, the other tooth is about to fall out completely. They have a so in other words, there are foreign and domestic medical families have roles with psychiatry and mental diagnosis. They pretend conversations and hold transcripts and evidences as collusions with crime scenes to get over on forcing on people. They also have their patients and criminals and the extended families of fire departments and of the intelligence community that run into the locations and pretend that they care about their drugs and they need them and stuff like that because they're using the locations to hide lie progressions. This is also where and how they leak their roles with they already leaked their roles with all these other countries, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Kuwait, Italy. All roles with psychiatry families over here next to the campuses planting evidences with the news media and with the interbranch all sides in cases and the interbranch putting themselves collusions and with the difference of that. So we have to get people on paper to one name in sequence too. Ugh. So these are Judge Napolitano's sources formally as the branches of government's convictions formal. They're recorded having been in collusion. They have positions with the campuses who are involved with this. And you guys are involved with torture, extortion, slavery. When you jump in our conversations to prevent us from getting a name to respond to us. Get them on paper. Let's go. You guys